The Marvel multiverse often crosses paths, and this is especially true in the case of Spider-Man. The Spider-Men and women have fought together in the Spider-Verses, bringing fans a thrilling and kick-ass storyline. So, out of the many versions of Peter Parker who exist across the multiverse, there are a few in particular who are veteran, with one also having a dark side. Unlike our jolly, friendly neighborhood hero, this Spider-Man from Earth 312-500 is more of an anti-hero who isn't afraid to go for the kill. So let's explore the origins of Old Man Spider-Man and his effect on our beloved Spidey from Earth 616. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. How was the older Spider-Man introduced? We got the first glimpse of the older Spider-Man in the Amazing SpiderMan number 58. The Avengers unwittingly summoned Dormammu, and now they have to save the city filled with his minions, the mindless ones, while he prepares to destroy it. Doctor Strange takes the lead and asks the others to fight the minions while he deals with Dormammu, but the younger Spider-Man worries about Doctor Strange's safety and, ignoring the Doc's advice, jumps in to help him. Unfortunately, Spidey's intrusion leads to a failed incantation, and Doctor Strange and the young Spider-Man are caught in a time and space void. Doctor Strange decides to use another spell, but warns Spider-Man that they could either reach their own dimension or an approximation of it. Taking their chances, Doctor Strange uses his powers to get them out of the void and into a version of Earth, which is moments before Dormammu arrives. They move between dimensions as they speak, but suddenly, Spider-Man hears Mary Jane calling for help as she runs away from the mindless ones. Without a second thought, Spider-Man plunges to save her while Doctor Strange is left shouting warnings of what could happen if they separated. Spider-Man fights the minions, but there are too many, and he watches as one of them kills MJ. The young Spider-Man slumps down, apologizing to MJ. But just then, he hears another voice talking to Aunt May. The young Spider-Man moves to another dimension where he's hiding behind a headstone, and the rain is coming down cold. He sees a middle-aged man apologizing to Aunt May's grave for letting her down and promises to make her proud. He also says that he must go as people are coming for him. He then pulls out his Spider-Man mask and shrugs off his overcoat to reveal a version of the Spider-Man suit. The young Spider-Man is stunned to see himself in this older, haggard form, and is in disbelief that his aunt is no more. Young Spidey shifts between timelines, seemingly in the same dimension where he watches young Peter Parker being ridiculed by his college mates. In the next scene, we see a spider looming over this young Peter Parker, so it's safe to assume that this was Peter before he transformed into Spider-Man. Spider-Man from Earth 616 is now caught shifting between the timelines where he can see the older Spider-Man surrounded by the police force, ready to shoot, while young Peter is on the verge of a life-changing spider sting. The older Spider-Man's first look left fans with budding questions about what made him go dark and why the cops were ready to shoot him down. What was the fate of this version, or Old Man Spider-Man? Before we look at what eventually happened to Old Man Spider-Man, let's peek at why he's the Dark Spider-Man. In the Earth 312-500 verse, Kraven the Hunter attacks and murders Kane and Martha, Maddie Franklin. This doesn't go down too well with Earth 3112-500 Spider-Man, who in turn unleashes his rage and kills Kraven. This was probably the turning point in Spider-Man's life, where he could no longer see the thin line that separated good from evil. Spider-Man continued on this darker path, hurting his close friends and family while killing several who he thought were in the wrong. Eventually, the Avengers were left with no choice but to bar Spider-Man from their team. By then, however, Spider-Man was too deep into his anti-hero form. This Spidey is also known to have killed Dr. Octopus by piercing Octopus's heart with his own tentacle. The fate of Old Man Spider-Man was sealed in Amazing SpiderMan number 500, which continues from when Earth 616 Spidey oscillates between timelines. The young Spider-Man is considering changing the fate of Old Man Spider-Man by going to the moment where the spider bit Peter Parker and stopping it. He once again finds himself behind Aunt May's headstone with older Spider-Man amidst the NYPD cops. Officer William Lamont approaches the older Spider-Man and asks him to surrender himself for manslaughter while promising to help Peter. But Spider-Man believes that he's come too far down the dark path to return and is unwilling to consider Lamont's offer. He turns back to face Aunt May's grave and speaks to her headstone. but it seems more like a message to the young Spider-Man hidden behind. He says that time was about to change once again, and that there was nothing he could do about it. Older Spider-Man also claims that what was about to happen would be better for MJ and their son Ben. Finally, the older Spider-Man leaps onto the police force, who start firing shots at him. He kicks and punches his way around as more and more cops pile onto him. But Old Man Spider-Man fights on, injuring and probably killing as many as possible. Finally, a shot fired by one of the officers hits him in the back, sealing his fate forever. The young Spider-Man watches all this, and when he moves back in time to when Peter Parker is about to get bitten, he considers shooting a web and shooing the spider away. But his consciousness does not allow him to meddle with time, and both Peter Parker and young Spider-Man scream in agony, one for getting bitten by an irradiated spider, and the other for his helplessness. Finally, Doctor Strange finds young Spider-Man and brings him back to his own dimension before Dormammu's attack. Old Man Spider-Man had a grim ending after going dark. We don't think fans would be too excited to see a gloomy and dark Spider-Man who thinks the only way out is by killing people. The dark version was a way to show young Spider-Man of his possible end if he were to change paths. But could this Spider-Man have a different ending? Let us know what you think. Meanwhile, let's look at another story that involved an older Spider-Man. SpiderMan Reign, another brutal version of an older Spider-Man. SpiderMan Reign was released as a 4-part issue that showcased a wrinkled, old, and miserable Peter Parker. The story is based on the future in an almost dystopian world where the superheroes have either been killed, driven away from New York, or gone into hiding. The city is under jurisdiction of Mayor Waters, who is on the verge of launching a technological system named the Web. The Web is like a force field around the city that will not allow any unknown entities to enter the city, nor could anyone exit it. The city's only news broadcasting network is the Daily Bugle, which is used as a propaganda mechanism by the mayor. Reign refers to the military force that polices the city and is brutal when it comes to law enforcement. They don't even spare kids. And of course, the city has new rules, like no one is allowed to wear a mask or speak against the government. So what's Spider-Man up to in this world? We see Spider-Man at the beginning of the comics getting fired from his job at the florist for screwing up a wedding. He is old and frail with a full-grown gray mustache and beard, a wrinkled forehead, and thick glasses. He clearly hasn't aged gracefully and looks like he's ready to kick the bucket. Haggard at losing his job, Peter walks back home at a lifeless pace, carrying lilies. He sees 2 of Reign's cops maltreating a teenager and tries to stop them, but gets beaten up unintentionally. With a bloody nose and a broken arm, Old Man Parker returns to his dull and gloomy house, where he lives in the aftermath of MJ's death due to cancer. Sounds rather depressing, doesn't it? But we promise it gets exciting. The city is getting ready for the Web's launch when Parker hears a knock on his door and is visited by the Daily Bugle's old editor, J.J. Jameson. Jameson has grown old too, and tries to make amends with Peter Parker. He offers Parker a package and pleads with him to awaken Spider-Man once again, but Parker shuts the door in Jameson's face. Parker opens the package to find a camera inside, but there's something else in it. Parker stares into the whites of the eye mask lying in front of him and decides to wear it one more time. Meanwhile, Jameson is caught vandalizing a car, and the Reign officers tackle him to the ground. Although Spider-Man overpowers the 2 Reign officers, he doesn't emerge as his bravest self. He's scared that Jameson found him in isolation and that others could follow. So he decides to quit town before they can get to him. He shaved off his beard, cleans up, and packs his bag, getting ready to leave. But MJ's memory stops him and leads him to a window. Meanwhile, Jameson publishes a cheap edition of the Bugle and informs the public of Spider-Man's return. This sends the news network into a frenzy, declaring Jameson and Spider-Man a threat. It also makes way for Mayor Waters and his advisor Sax to launch the Web within the day. Sax also makes a gang of 6 of Spider-Man's nemesis who were in custody this whole time. He calls them the Center Six and fits them with explosive implants to control them before sending them to fight Spider-Man. Jameson gathers teenagers and kids in a church and speaks to them about starting a revolution. With the help of a teen, he hacks into all networks, and the words, "Witness the truth," are transmitted across all channels. MJ makes Spider-Man watch from their window as a crowd gathers below, waiting to get a glimpse of him. Even with Reign officers shouting warnings, the crowd seems immovable. We also see the hypno-hustler in the mob trying to manipulate the officers, but getting shot down instead. Spider-Man watches from his window when shots get fired his way. He dons his Spider-Man costume and leaps into the crowd. Only his costume isn't the usual red and blue, but pitch black instead. He attacks the Reign officers with his classic Spider-Man MO while narrating a joke. Spider-Man's contagious courage catches onto the crowd, and they attack the officers too. Thanks to Jameson's hacker, the whole fight is being transmitted live to an audience. Just then, 5 of the Sinner Six, Electro, Scorpion, Kraven the Hunter, Sandman, and Mysterio, join the fight. They allow the transmission to continue as they take on Spider-Man. Spider-Man puts up a brave fight, but doesn't stand a fighting chance against the combined forces of the Sinners. Finally, Kraven the Hunter unmasks Spider-Man to show his bloody, worn-out face to the public. Spider-Man is brutally trashed, and it looks like the 5 are about to kill him, but suddenly, mysterious metal arms carry Spider-Man away to a graveyard. Spider-Man compares the metal arms to the Greek play device Deus Ex Machina, which descends to save the hero from an impossible situation. In Spider-Verse, the most famous metal arms belong to none other than Dr. Octavius. That's right, the Doc saves Spider-Man from the Sinners and brings him to the graveyard where Aunt May, Uncle Ben, and MJ are buried. So while Spider-Man is reeling in his past, begging for forgiveness from his family, Jameson gets captured and taken to the mayor. He attacks the mayor with a knife, trying to unveil his true identity, but is shocked as blood oozes out of his body. Jameson was clearly expecting something else. He then realizes that Sax was the mastermind behind the whole plan. Jameson stabs Sax with the knife, and as predicted, the black leech in Sax's body reveals himself. Yes, Sax was Venom in disguise, with grand plans for New York, which the mayor knew about and supported, thinking it was for the city's betterment. But Venom obviously wanted to take over. He launches the web project covering the city in a dome of beam, and even though the idea was to let no one in or out, Venom opened a way for his symbiote friends to descend into the city and start consuming the masses. Meanwhile, at the graveyard, a weak Spider-Man is ready to give up and die. The skeletal form of Dr. Octavius is digging MJ's grave, and Peter thinks it's to bury him with her. But the Doc had other plans. A backstory reveals that MJ died of cancer from the radiation in Spider-Man's body. She died in the hospital when Peter was fighting yet another crime, and he feels guilty for not spending her last moments together. This is when Peter Parker decided to hang up his boots and buries the Spider-Man suit in MJ's coffin. The old Peter Parker has lost all strength to fight, and even with Doc trying to prompt him, he decides to lie in MJ's coffin and wait for his death. Back in the city, the kids gathered by Jameson hide in a church from the symbiotes unleashed by Venom. One of the girls, who seems like an orphan child, is on the streets, and she leads a symbiote right to the church as she tries to run toward safety. As the symbiote is attacking the other kids inside the church, the girl remembers Jameson's words that the bell will save them. She starts ringing the bell, and as we know, symbiotes don't react very well to loud sounds. The symbiote backs off, leaving the kids alone. The kids then form a force of masked vigilantes and start walking toward the Olympus Tower, where Mayor Waters and Venom have held Jameson captive. They carry the big church bell to push the symbiotes away with loud gongs. The ringing of the bell reaches the ears of Peter Parker, filling him with newfound hope and strength. And we see the red-suited hand of Spider-Man punching through the coffin. This is definitely the turning point in the series, with fans getting the much-expected action between the red and blue-suited Spidey and the baddies. At the same time, the big question was, how will this old guy ever fight the Sinners, Venom, and an army of symbiotes? Here's how. The kids reached the Olympus Tower only to be stopped by Reign's officers, led by the Sandman. The girl is in the lead, and the gongs continue to keep the symbiotes away. Venom is agitated by the sound and tells the mayor to order the Reign officers to kill the kids. Sandman hesitates, but the mayor reminds him of the explosive in his body, that he could detonate any second. Sandman has no choice but to comply. However, the girl removes her mask, and we discover she is Sandman's daughter. She turns into the stone using her powers, only for the officers to start shooting at her and others, despite Sandman commanding them to stop. The bell stops ringing and the symbiotes are once again attacking people, carrying the broken pieces of his child. Sandman tries to help her piece herself together, but in vain. Around this time, Spider-Man stealthily tries to climb atop the Olympus Tower, but Venom senses his presence and orders Electro to use his powers to electrocute Spider-Man. Spider-Man saves himself from the current and launches a full-blown attack on Electro. Electro is joined by Hydro Man, the sixth sinner of the gang, and as we all know, Spidey is a genius who uses the fact that electricity and water don't mix to his advantage, setting the room on fire and burning his two nemesises. Next, Spider-Man faces Scorpion. Spider-Man maneuvers between Scorpion's attacks while making fun of his new tech. Finally, Spidey kicks him out of the window, and Scorpion falls to his presumable death. When Spider-Man turns around to find the next sinner, he comes face to face with Mary Jane, calling him a failure. Can you guess who this sinner could be? It was Mysterio indeed. With a quick and hard-hitting punch, Spider-Man breaks Mysterio's helmet, causing him to collapse, but not before he could release a fear-inducing hallucinogenic gas. As Mysterio lies on the ground, Kraven the Hunter is seen emerging from the shadows. Kraven inhales the gas, referring to an African tribe who ate toxic mushrooms to help them become more aggressive in battle. Spider-Man decides to follow suit. He breathes in the toxic gas and uses fear as his strength to fight the Hunter. He attacks the Hunter and binds him in webs, using all his cartridges. Now with 5 sinners down, Spider-Man heads to face Venom and the army of symbiotes with his usual one-liners that add to his swag, even in his old age. As it turns out, Venom made this outrageous plan to captivate and consume an entire city, only to lure Spider-Man out. He clearly has some unsettled issues with Spidey to go to such an extent. While Venom continues his monologue of how he felt alone and abandoned, Mayor Waters tries to make a run for it, only to be stopped by Sandman. Sandman acquires the detonator from Waters for the explosive fitted in the Sinners. Spider-Man comes up with an idea to kill the symbiotes by taking them towards the tower's peak, which generates current for the force field surrounding the city. He knows that they could die in the process, but hopes it will give courage to the people of the city watching the act. As Spider-Man reaches the top, he cracks another joke trying to distract the symbiote army while at the same time throwing punches and kicks at them. But the army is thrashing him too, when Sandman comes to his aid. He hands over the detonator to Spider-Man and fills him in on the explosives in the bodies of the sinners. Without another thought, Spider-Man detonates the explosives, causing the entire tower to blow up in flames. The web project falls apart as the tower collapses in a cloud of dust. So what happened to the old man Spider-Man? He survives and decides the city still needs him to fight for them. Does an older Spider-Man have the same powers as his younger version? We can all agree that in every version of the Spider-Verse, the spider people were bitten by some type of irradiated spider. This would mean that they had similar powers, like being able to shoot webs, climb walls, and fight. And they all had their spider senses too. The only difference between old and young Spider-Man could probably be stamina. In SpiderMan Reign, we saw that old Spider-Man often received a sound thrashing from his enemies, and only survived with some help. However, old Spider-Man's most significant strength that kept him going was perhaps the fact that he had lost it all, and he was ready to welcome death with open arms. It was what helped him fight the Hunter even through the fear-induced gas. One thing to note here is that Spider-Man's strength always comes from within, combined with his never-give-up attitude. So even when the older Spider-Man wanted to quit and just lie in the coffin, he couldn't let his people suffer and got up to fight for another day. Additionally, both the young and old Spider-Men were equally intelligent and had an amazing sense of humor, which helped them mentally beat their enemies. So whether the old Spidey has the same powers or not, he definitely has the same drive as any other version of Spider-Man. Even the darker, older version of Spider-Man didn't give up, but fought till his dying breath, regardless of whether he was right or wrong. The multiverse has given us several older versions of Spider People. In one version, Aunt May was bitten by the spider instead of Peter Parker, making her Spider-Man. Whereas in another version, Spider-Man and MJ have a daughter for whom Spider-Man ultimately decides to give up being a superhero and live a layman's life. In another Spider-Verse, an older Ezekiel Sims takes on the role of Spider-Man after Peter Parker dies. So what's your take on Old Man Spider-Man? And which version do you like the most? Let us know in the comments below.